Good evening and welcome to another exciting episode of the program Service to Humanity, a program that brings you up to date with the activities of the Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development. I am your anchor, Habiba Zakzak. Sit back for a wonderful moment. In our lineup, we have details of the handover of utensils and aprons to benefiting schools in the FCT under the National Homegrown School Feeding Program. We also have a story of a 2-day sensitization workshop on effective media reporting of the humanitarian sector organized for the ministry's press team and correspondents. Details of this and more in our program tonight. Please stay tuned.
Across the 6 geopolitical zones.
They should use this money for what it is meant for, obviously to take care of their family.
In 36 states and the FCT. Over 6.4 million of Nigerians poorest of the poor in about 1.3 million households receive conditional cash transfers of 5,000 naira monthly under the Household Upliftment Program of the federal government. Their joy knows no bound.
And the government is very well because they did work for us.
It helped me to do any other thing, my family.
Reducing absolute poverty, promoting shared prosperity through the Conditional Cash Transfer Initiative. The Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development in service to humanity.
The program is Service to Humanity. Last week saw some major changes being announced by the presidency affecting the Director Generals of some of the agencies under the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development. In line with this, the Federal Commissioner of the National Commission for Refugees, Migrants and IDPs, Senator Bashir Mohamed Lado, was appointed Director General of the National Agency for Trafficking in Persons. He replaces the former DG, Iman Suleiman Ibrahim, who now takes his place as the new Federal Commissioner for the Refugee Commission. The statement announcing the changes directed that changes should be effected after comprehensive handover notes to successors. In another development, retired Air Vice Marshal Muhammad Muhammad, former DG of the National Emergency Management Agency, was appointed chairman of the 12-man board of the Senior Citizens Center. A new DG for NEMA has been appointed. He is Ahmed Mustafa Habib. For more news of the recent happenings in the ministry, Management Diary is up next. Please stay tuned.
The Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, Hajia Sadia Umar Farouk, recently commissioned and handed over the Nigeria COVID-19 Action Recovery and Economic Stimulus (NCARES) project. Over 40 operational vehicles were handed over to the Minister of State for Budget and National Planning, Prince Clem Agba, at the Eagle Square, Abuja. While presenting the vehicles, the minister, on behalf of President Muhammadu Buhari and Nigerians, appreciated the World Bank for coming to the aid of the poor and vulnerable Nigerians and businesses affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. The minister also commended the efforts of the Steering Committee for NCARES and the Federal CARES Technical Committee for their efforts in ensuring the intervention from World Bank gets to the people at the grassroots levels. Each state received a sum of $20 million over a period of 2 years, while the FCT and the Federal Care Support will get $15 million each, with effect from June 30th, 2021, from the $750 million grant from the World Bank. All states and the FCT are participating in the 2-year emergency program. The minister stated that the vehicles will go a long way in assisting state coordinators of the program in carrying out the task of alleviating the suffering of the ordinary people in the country. She urged the states and the FCT to ensure adequate utilization of the vehicles and grants from the World Bank. NCARES is an initiative of the federal government with support from World Bank to help reduce the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. The Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, Hajia Sadia Umar Farouk, has called for continuous collaboration between government institutions, civil society groups, and private sector bodies in developing the education sector. She stated this during the official launch of the Children Accident Prevention Initiative, CAPI, organized by the Ministry of Education on the 27th of May, being Children's Day. The initiative, with the theme "Go to School, Be Seen, Be Safe," is aimed at lowering the risk of children falling victims of road accidents to and from schools, and will see about 40 million school children across the country equipped with reflective jackets. Sadia Umar Farouk said her ministry will play an active role to ensure the success, sustenance, and expansion of the initiative. She urged all stakeholders to contribute in building a vibrant and better society for all. In his speech, the organizer of the event and the Minister of Education, Malam Adamu, was represented by the Minister of State, Chukwuemeka Nwajuba, stated that the Safe School initiative is targeted at protecting children of the vulnerable in the country. It will also address obvious challenges involving school children being involved in road accidents.
Welcome back from that break. Following the lockdown in 2020, the National Homegrown School Feeding Program was temporarily suspended. But with the return to normalcy, especially in schools, the program has resumed in earnest. In our next segment, we take a report of the handover of utensils to benefiting schools in the FCT performed by the Minister, Hajia Sadia Umar Farouk. Let's take the story.
We welcome you, Ma. You are welcome. Thank you for the food. Thank you for everything. We love the food. We love everything. Thank you for giving us food. Thank you. Give us more food. God will bless you in Jesus' name.
That was the voice of the Nigerian child, welcoming the Honorable Minister to the special occasion to flag off the presentation of utensils and aprons for the Homegrown School Feeding Program to participating schools in the Federal Capital Territory. The event held at LGEA Primary School, Jabi. Speaking before the ceremonial flag-off, Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, Hajia Sadia Umar Farouk, explained the purpose of the intervention, saying that it is to ensure that pupils have the best experience of integrity and safety during their consumption of the free meals provided by the federal government. The minister explained what the ministry has achieved through the National Homegrown School Feeding Program.
The school feeding program seeks to increase the enrollment of children into schools, boost their nutrition, and encourage entrepreneurship, enhance agricultural production, and generate millions of rural jobs in the country. In line with this, I'm happy to report that we have so far recorded feeding nearly 10 million people across the country, and have also engaged over 100,000 cooks. Also, massive employment opportunities are being created within the school feeding ecosystem in sectors of transportation, agriculture, energy supply, and food materials packaging. This program is designed to reduce poverty in all its forms and is a collaboration between the federal government and state governments.
Speaking earlier at the event, the representative of the Minister of State FCT welcomed the minister and appreciated her for all she has done.
Thank you for what you have come to do in FCT, for the support you've given FCT in the area of social investment program. And we hope to continue to enjoy the robust relationship we have with the FCT. Thank you very much. You're welcome, ma'am.
This way. This way.
Doing what she does best, Hajia Sadia Umar Farouk, after the handover of utensils, proceeded to interact with pupils of the LGEA Primary School during their feeding for the day. The pupils appreciated the president and the minister for the school feeding initiative.
I will say a thank you to them.
I want to thank
to say thank you for the food. And I want to tell them thank you for all what they have been doing for us.
Speaking after the event, stakeholders lauded the homegrown school feeding program as an initiative that boosts learning and increase economic activities.
All the food that is actually being cooked is actually harvested from farmers within the local area. So in essence, the program will now improve the performance of our local subsistence farmers and introduce farming as a business within the community.
It has really promoted school enrollment. Not only promoting school enrollment, it has equally created wealth and employment. As you can see, the vendors there are the cooks. They are being picked or selected from each area council to cook for these children.
Glad to know you're still with us on the program Service to Humanity. Proper dissemination of information is critical to the success of any venture or intervention. Access to accurate information is also very important, especially for those who are vested with the responsibility of feeding this information to the public. It is with this in mind that a 2-day media sensitization workshop was organized last week for journalists accredited to the report the Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development. How did it go? Find out in our next story.
The 2-day sensitization workshop was on effective media reporting of the humanitarian sector. The Permanent Secretary of the Ministry, Bashir Dura Alkali, in his opening remarks, stated that the media is one of the critical stakeholders in the ministry and serves as an agent of change. It is therefore ideal, he said, for the journalists to have adequate information and knowledge about the ministry and its agencies to effectively disseminate information to the public. The Permanent Secretary spoke more on the aim of the workshop.
The aim of the workshop, Honorable Minister, is to educate and sensitize participants on the mandates, programs and activities of the ministry, as well as expose them to the concept of humanitarian response and how to effectively report the humanitarian sector.
The Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, Sadia Umar Farooq, who was also present at the event, acknowledged the role of the media in educating, informing, creating awareness, sensitizing, and acting as the watchdog of the society.
In the humanitarian sector, the media plays a major role during emergencies and disasters by providing vital information to both the public and the government before, during, and after the incidents. The media educates people about consequences, hazards, and warnings on disasters and alerts government for rescue and interventions. Hence, the need for increased collaboration between the ministry, humanitarian actors, and the media. I must state that this workshop was organized to expose you to the operations of the ministry, the functions of the various departments, and the modus operandi of National Social Investment Program for effective reportage of the humanitarian sector.
Facilitators were drawn from various departments to give information on their various departments and areas of specialization for better understanding by the correspondents. Participants at the 2-day media sensitization described the workshop as timely, as most people are already asking questions about the ministry. The workshop, they said, will go a long way in giving journalists information to answer most of these questions.
Okay, first of all, I feel it's timely. Reason being, we've been having a conflict. You know, one issue is coming up from every part of the country, and our reportage is very, very important to the public. We need to put the right information and then using the right terminologies. So I personally feel it's timely, and it's also going to help us boost our information.
For me, I think this is a maiden workshop being held by the ministry for journalists covering the activities of the ministry. It's a welcome development and long overdue, and it's to actually acquaint us of activities of various departments and what they are doing in respect of humanitarian activities in Nigeria, especially the coordinating units.
It is apt because it's something that should be done in between times, because times are changing, and with the humanitarian challenges coming up, I think it is pertinent that reporters, especially those covering the humanitarian bit, be trained on effective humanitarian coverage.
Members of the media team of the ministry who put together the workshop spoke on what it was meant to achieve.
Actually, the ministry is quite new. It was established in August 2019, and as a new ministry, we need a lot of sensitization and publicity. And we've had over 60 journalists accredited with this ministry. And we felt it was very important for us to have a forum where we can sensitize them on the operations and the activities of the ministry so that they can write from an informed position.
The workshop was put together by the press unit of the ministry. And it's basically a sensitization to enable the journalists that cover the ministry to be able to have first-hand information about the workings of the ministry, and also to have, both the in-house and external teams of the that cover media for the ministry, understand how to report the humanitarian sector. It is a very sensitive sector, and it requires that those that handle it do so very professionally and along global best practices.
Welcome back from that break. Shortly before the immediate past DG of NEMA, AVM Mohammed was reassigned. He submitted the agency's 2020 annual report to the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development in a very colorful ceremony that saw her also commissioning disaster risk reduction equipment. Let's take that story and a brief overview of NEMA's activities in the last 1 year.
The year 2020 was a very significant year as the world was ravaged by the COVID-19 pandemic. The health emergency saw to a complete lockdown of activities throughout the globe. Nigeria as a country also succumbed to the prevailing situation then as major offices, businesses and markets were locked down. That wasn't all, as the nation experienced other natural and man-made disasters from flooding, fire outbreaks, insurgency, banditry, kidnapping, road accidents, pipeline and gas explosions, herders-farmers clashes, communal clashes, cattle rustling, building collapse and the EndSARS protest. All of these had various degrees of repercussions. In all of these, the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, working with the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, traversed the country, bringing relief to those affected by these disasters, taking charge of distribution of food and other palliatives to states during the lockdown experienced during COVID-19. The agency was also notably present in states ravaged by floods to support farmers with relief materials and inputs to return to the farms. 2020 was therefore a year when NEMA's capabilities and capacity to manage disasters was tested and tried to the fullest. How did it fare? In line with extant laws, the agency is required to present an annual report of its activities to the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, enumerating its activities amongst other things. This it did in a ceremony on the 24th of May 2021.
Destruction of
While presenting a summary of the report, Immediate Past Director General of NEMA, AVM Mohammed, highlighted some of the activities of NEMA in the year 2020.
Within the year under review, NEMA collaborated with research institutions, centers for disaster risk management and development studies, We also partnered with the Nigerian Center for Disease Control to carry out public awareness against the spread of the COVID-19. Furthermore, in collaboration with UN SPIDER and NASDA, NEMA produced flood maps for efficient response. Thereafter, advocacy visits were made to the 36 states of the Federation and the disaster response units of the armed forces on flood preparedness, mitigation, and response.
AVM Muhammad retired said most of the activities as well as its research and collaborations yielded positive results in the execution of its mandate. The former NEMA DG also extended appreciation to Japan for its support in providing disaster reduction equipment. He concluded with special appreciation to the President and Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, as well as other stakeholders for their support for disaster reduction in Nigeria. In her remarks after being presented with the report, the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, Hajia Sadia Umar Farouk, commended NEMA for a timely submission of its report and all the successes recorded despite the disaster it faced. She urged the agency to exceed the successes of 2020 in providing relief to victims and those made vulnerable by disasters.
I would like to acknowledge and commend NEMA for having the 2020 annual report ready on time, which serves as a clear commitment of the leadership of NEMA. However, I want to admonish you to reflect on the content of the report and forge ahead to exceed the successes you have recorded, especially as we all align our duties to support the policy drive of President Muhammad Buhari in alleviating the plight of our vulnerable citizens and ultimately reduce poverty to the barest minimum, especially at the grassroots level.
The minister also appreciated the government of Japan during the induction of comprehensive disaster risk reduction equipment for search and rescue across the Federation. She urged NEMA to make good use of the equipment.
The importance of standard equipment in the conduct of critical search and rescue operations cannot be overemphasized. I hereby charge NEMA to accept and make judicious use of the equipment in the effective service delivery to humanity.
Other stakeholders present at the event included the Chairman, Senate Committee on Special Duties, Senator Yusuf, and Chairman, House Committee on Emergency and Disaster Management, Olawaye Rahim Tunji, appreciated the government of Japan for the donation made to Nigeria.
Annual reports are documents of accountability, and we are happy that we have this document presented for accountability of what has happened in the last 1 year. Like I say, under the strict eyes of the Honorable Minister of Humanitarian Affairs.
The second leg of the event was the induction of the special disaster reduction equipment donated by Japan to NEMA. The equipment are 9 units of rescue vehicles fitted with rescue materials and 4 units of water purifier systems. The ceremony was performed by the minister, after which she inspected the equipment alongside other stakeholders.
Coordinating the nation's humanitarian response is by no means a huge task. But from what we see, the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development is rising up to the task. The ministry is indeed fully engaged in various activities, all with the sole aim of reducing poverty to the barest minimum. On this note, we wrap up this episode of Service to Humanity. Join me next week for another exciting moment on the program. Good night and stay safe.